Trump extends the ceasefire, citing chaos inside Iran's government. Let's check it out. And welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight. Breaking off the top, polls closing in Virginia right now on a referendum as Democrats attempt to gerrymander a purple state that Trump only lost by 5 points in 2024 into a 10-seat Democrat powerhouse, which would only have one very large Republican rural district in the western part of the state. The map you see there on the screen is what they're trying to do to Virginia. 10 blue areas, 1 red. 10 districts for the Democrats in a state, again, that Trump only lost by 5 points. In Congress, Virginia might be bluer than California is very soon. We're going to discuss this later in the show as these results come in. We'll follow that story, of course. But first, we're going to start with Iran. Big news on Iran. J.D. Vance and negotiators never left for Pakistan today, and negotiations with the regime called off at this point. The trip was called off as the regime is now taking a harder stance, refusing to give up its nuclear program, refusing to negotiate until Trump ends his blockade of Iranian ports. The president on CNBC this morning. Take a listen.
Iran can get themselves on a very good footing if they make a deal. They can make themselves into a strong nation again, a wonderful nation again. They have incredible people. But they seem to be, bloodthirsty. They're led by some very, very, unfortunately, tough people. And I don't mean tough in a good way. I think it's very negative.
They've gotten tougher, too. We saw a big change in recent days. Iran went from moving toward a sensible capitulation after the clear decimation of its regime back toward the defiant fury that has defined this terror regime for the last 47 years. They're moving in the wrong direction. Ahmad Vahidi, the new commander of the IRGC after the IDF blew up his boss on the first day of the war, is acting very tough tonight, forcing Iran's political leaders to refuse negotiations until the blockade is lifted. Trump saying because Iran's government is so fractured and nobody knows who's in charge, the Pakistanis are asking that the U.S. hold off on bombing until the regime can actually come up with a unified proposal that our American government might be interested in reading. Trump saying he's willing to do that, but ordering the military to continue the blockade in the meantime. Iran gets no financial relief whatsoever, which is something that Iran had demanded that he end if they were even going to talk. It's hard to imagine General Vahidi stays alive much longer. Trump may have to pound this regime back into submission. We're going to see how long this ceasefire extension lasts. This week, maritime reporting service Lloyd's List claimed that more than 20 Iranian ships had bypassed our American blockade we've had up for about a week. That is a very embarrassing report that would indicate our inability to fully shut down Iran's economy and block their ports. But reporting on the ground indicates that that report is very likely to be totally false or at least dramatically exaggerated. This morning, again, the president on CNBC saying that we do have full control over the Strait of Hormuz, calling that report false.
We're not going to open the strait until we have a final deal. No, we want to open the strait. They said, we're not opening. We totally control the strait, just so you understand, for all the fake news out there.
All right, Senator Chris Murphy, a Democrat from Connecticut, saw that Lloyd's List story and went viral with his response, writing simply on Twitter, awesome, which many took as proof of Democrats so deranged that they're actually cheering for the Iranian terror regime to outlast this American assault. We're going to give Murphy the benefit of the doubt, believe that he was being sarcastic, as he claimed he was in this follow-up tweet. But he did follow that up by demanding that Trump also end the war immediately, demanding a mid-operation surrender to an Islamic terror regime, which is proof, of course, that no matter what the president does in any way, it must be criticized politically. Democrats demanding we relent and allow the terror regime in Iran to survive. A quick flashback here was Chris Murphy, very desperate to extend the Obama-Iran nuclear deal back in 2022. Listen to what he says.
Would you take the Iran's Revolutionary Guard off the terror list in order to get a deal?
Yes. I mean, the practical impact of designating them as a foreign terrorist organization is inconsequential.
So this is the guy that says we should pull out of Iran right now. It's a reminder of just how easy it is for the Iranian regime to manipulate our government when it's led by the other team, which clearly, of course, has a soft spot for that regime in Iran and very much is willing to give Iran anything that it wants, piles of cash, any designation it needs, begging them to sign a deal that the U.S., under their watch, never really enforces. Retired Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg is back with us tonight. And, sir, it's good to have you again. I want to start with the blockade remains, but Trump giving Iran a little more time, I guess, to figure out who's in charge?
Yeah, Rob, thanks for having me. Good to be with you. Look, here's my sarcasm. I'm shocked that they were doing something like this. I mean, you are dealing with a theocratic government that is protected by the IRGC, that is designed to protect the government and make sure the supreme leader is in charge. It is not the army, but it's got guns, and they're going to keep protecting that. Vahidi, when he comes down the line, is one of those people in charge. He's a hardliner, and you're going to have to deal with him now and figure out what you want to do with him. Do you want to eliminate him and have somebody else hardcore come in? You know, they do what's called the Mosaic Doctrine, and it was set up by years ago when they made sure that they had a defensive doctrine, now called Mosaic, which was designed to defeat the United States of America by keep putting things off and delaying negotiations. They're into that right now. I think we need to finish it. And I think President Trump is really good about having an embargo, a blockade, to cut their economic lifeline. But I would even go a little bit further. I'm one of those that says, take some land. That doesn't mean you march on Tehran, but you can take Karg Island, which is 90% of their export of their oil. You can take the Strait Islands as well, like Iraq, which is their command and control island, or Geisham. You have the capacity to do that, and then you control it. And you break their back economically, which President Trump is in the process of doing with a blockade. But how long will this blockade go?
Yeah,
I don't know. And the fact is, these guys are resilient.
Karg Island's already, it's not being utilized, though. I mean, we're stopping any and all oil shipments coming out of Iran. So Karg is kind of useless at this point, right? Do we need to take it, or can we just, if we keep this blockade in place, at some point, my understanding is that they can't produce oil any longer because they got nowhere to put it, and that's in the coming days, I believe. Are we kind of choking them enough?
Well, I think with a blockade, which is really good, and President Trump has it right, and economically strangling them, but how long can you keep the blockade up when you have China dying on the vines as well, and all the other export ships coming through to other nations out there? This way you actually control it by taking the heart of the matter, which happens to be Karg Island, and you take something that is their crown jewel. And you can fly over a land all you want. You can pulverize it from the air. You can destroy it. And I was in the first Gulf War, and we had an air campaign that went on for 30 days. But after a period of time, you basically have to do what the Romans did. You put your soldiers in the mud, and you actually say, we're going to take something that's valuable to you, and we take land. Is there risk involved? Of course there is. Does it mean we couldn't get casualties? Of course there are. But this actually finishes the job, and I think that's where you want to be when you complete the job.
You think it's a mistake to pause here until Iran can, I guess, figure out who's in charge and give a proposal up? Is that a mistake? Should we be bombing tonight?
Well, I don't think we should be bombing. I think President Trump has a right with extending the blockade, which is good. But if you think these guys overnight are going to become Democrats, Republicans, Jeffersonian Democrats, you are dead wrong. They are hardcore theocratic government, which is for years and decades have chanted death to America, death to Israel. These people are not going to go away in a minute. So you must come up with a different plan to do it. We can't keep that blockade. Well, we can, but I don't think we will keep that blockade in forever. And sooner or later, China's going to start screaming about it. China's coming for a visit next month. And I'm trying to figure out a way to different do it. The other value of taking something like Karg Island is, why don't we establish a provisional government? And there's a lot of people out there that want to have a provisional government or different government. And then you have competing governments and then we find out who the Army is going to support.
Right.
They're twice the size of the IRGC. They do have the weapons as well. But right now, you've got the IRGC with Vahidi in charge. I don't even know whether Rachi, their foreign minister, is. And he's hardcore as well.
Yeah.
He's actually wrote the book on negotiations, but he's not being involved. The bright light out there is actually the president, Pezeshkian, who seems to be apparently a little bit of a moderate, but he's been sidelined by the IRGC as well. You know, this is one of those things we're going to have to make some really hard calls, some hard decisions, and it's basically we need to finish the job.
And we just need to, you're saying we need to do something more drastic to strangle them out, maybe cause some kind of internal strife, revolution, something like that, make a more advanced move, take Cargill in to force something bigger to happen.
That's kind of my take. This is we can't keep the status quo. And by the way, President Trump is bold enough and courageous enough to do something like that.
All right. We'll see what he does. We'll see how long this ceasefire lasts and how long this new general of the IRGC lasts as well, behaving the way that he is. Retired Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg, we appreciate you coming on, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
All right, Josh Hammer is the host of the Josh Hammer Show and joins us now. Good to have you back on. The blockade in place, but the ceasefire is extended as Trump says Iran needs more time, I guess, to figure out who's actually in control and to put together some kind of proposal that the United States might actually be willing to read. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, look, we don't really know who exactly is calling the shots in Iran. I think that would be putting it mildly. We believe it's probably the IRGC itself, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, because Khamenei the Younger appears to be some degree of incapacitated. But we know it's not the political leaders. It really appears to be the most radical of all factions there. So, look, if the president wants to extend this a little bit further, I think that's his prerogative. He has certainly earned the trust and the good faith and buy-in of the American people at this point. I suppose, Rob, I would only say that this can't go on forever. You obviously cannot allow the Iranians to filibuster themselves into some sort of off-ramp. I don't think Trump's going to let them do that, so I'm not particularly scared about that. To be very clear, in the meantime, it's important to point out the United States has left all of our military assets in the region. So there are multiple aircraft carrier strike groups ready to resume at a moment's notice there. And President Trump, I think, is indicating that he's very prepared to make that decision if need be. Again, we'll see what happens this week, but I don't think Trump's going to wait forever.
I don't imagine he will either, and I think obviously that's a vulnerability of pausing a little bit. He's certainly not going to remove the blockade, which is what they really want. They don't have any money. I think maybe he's going to have to kill a few more of these big guys like Vahidi, who's the kind of the commander of the IRGC. I think they need to be reminded that, oh, you're going to be a tough guy like this idiot on the screen. You're going to be a tough guy. You're going to be dead. I think a couple more of those would probably be effective. And you wonder how long he's really going to pause at all. I mean, the Pakistanis kind of asked for this. The Israelis are saying they don't really know who's in charge. Maybe this is a 1 or 2 day pause and then we go right back in. You don't know.
Yeah, and query, I guess, why Pakistan is able to exert this much influence here. That itself has been a little odd to me all along. I mean, let's not forget that Pakistan was the country where Osama bin Laden was hiding back in 2011. Pakistan is basically part of the Chinese Communist Party's sphere of influence there in Asia. So I've been a little confused exactly. I think we're essentially trying to show good faith because Pakistan is known to have fairly close ties with Iran there. But the whole thing is slightly confusing. Rob, if I were a betting man, and I'm not, but if I were in theory, I would place a fairly large wager that Donald Trump is not done yet when it comes to conventional military actions. It's very hard to put a timeline on it there. But unless the situation drastically changes over the next few days, and I don't think it will there, I think the epic theory is going to pick up right where it left off. He's not
going to let them re-collaborate and put everything back together with a pause for very long. I agree with you there. I wanted to show this. Tucker Carlson hosting his brother on his show, talking about Iran and apologizing to the American people because of this war, which I think we've pretty accurately shown was a necessary thing that had to be done, this operation in Iran. Apologizing to the American people for ever backing Donald Trump. Take a listen.
You and I and everyone else who supported him, you wrote speeches for him, I campaigned for him. I mean, we're implicated in this for sure.
Yes.
It's not enough to say, well, I changed my mind. You and me and millions of people like us are the reason this is happening right now.
Yes.
So I do think it's like a moment to wrestle with our own consciences. We'll be tormented by it for a long time. I will be. And I want to say I'm sorry for misleading people, and it was not intentional. That's all I'll say.
I mean, the dramatics of it and the intention here is to make it seem like what we're doing in Iran right now is the most egregious and outrageous move that the United States has ever made. You have a terror country, you have a terror regime that wants to destroy the West, that was rapidly escalating its nuclear program. They even admitted to having enough uranium to build 10 or 11 nuclear bombs. They're working on a ballistic program so they can send them into the West. And we have stopped them in their tracks. And to Tucker Carlson, this is the greatest atrocity the United States has ever committed. How absurd is that moment that you just watched?
It's beyond. I mean, I don't even know where to begin. I mean, first of all, Tucker's brother, Buckley, who was his guest there on that program, has been involved in trafficking some of the most outrageous conspiracy theories imaginable on social media. He has been amplifying people like Candace Owens and Jake Shields and essentially modern-day neo-Nazis. I guess to Tucker's credit, it's better that he says he's wrestling with his conscience than wrestling with a demon, which I guess he actually just did about a year and a half ago or so. So I suppose there's that. But, Rob, if I'm being serious for a second here, I think Tucker's playing a very serious long game. For the past year and a half or so, I've actually been saying on my own platform, I think Tucker is actually gearing up to run for president in 2028. And I think that his platform is going to be that Donald Trump said that he was MAGA. He said that he was America first. He lied to you. He sold you out. I alone am the solution. I alone can actually be America first for real. I know it sounds outrageous, and God willing, he would get minuscule support there. But I unironically think that actually is the plan. And this whole broader woke right, whatever you want to call it, Rob, it's all oriented, I think, towards trying to take over the movement. And what better way to do that than then try to co-opt it in 2028 in the primary?
That's well said. Yeah, he certainly has some agenda. And look, I understand people that this war is not popular with. There's a lot of people in the conservative base that aren't crazy about the idea that we're interested in any other country other than our own, that we're going into Iran and doing this. But I do also think at the same time, it's a pretty easy thing to understand for most people, that you can't have a terror regime in the Middle East that's building nuclear bombs and ballistic weapons, a country that chants quite loudly that they want to destroy the West, they want to destroy the United States. You can't have that, you know. And if it means if you got to mow the lawn, whatever you want to call this, whatever this ends up being, or if we behead this regime of 47 years, whatever it is, this is a pretty easy thing to understand for most people if you're just pragmatic about how the world really works and what we need to do to protect ourselves. And that's as simple as that. Josh, I got to leave it there. We appreciate it. Good to see you.
Thanks so much, Rob.
All right, is Obama's CIA director John Brennan finally about to go down? A grand jury is in the works for the architect of Trump-Russia collusion. We're going to talk about that coming up next. And then later in news from the left, a priceless moment between two DNC puppets.
This is a special freedom of the press and freedom of speech caucus bill.
A Social Security update. Millions collect Social Security, but 70% of Americans don't get their full benefits. Now, a new report shows how to boost your Social Security by as much as $188,000. Author Matthew Allen reveals 5 key strategies in a new report. Newsmax calls it the best guide for retirees. Everyone needs this free Social Security report. Act today to get your full benefits.
So, here is a before of my stomach before Sono Bello, and this is after.
This year, don't just lose weight, lose stubborn fat and sagging extra skin permanently at Sono Bello.
I had some loose, wiggly skin, and it is no longer there thanks to Sono Bello.
Our expert surgeons use micro laser technology to safely target and remove your diet-resistant fat and tighten loose skin permanently.
I wanted the results of the tummy tuck, but not the downtime. I had a 10 out of 10 experience.
We've helped over 300,000 people transform, and we're proud to be America's #1 cosmetic surgery specialist.
In just one visit, Sono Bello got rid of my love handles and my belly fat.
Do you want that flat stomach? You go get that flat stomach.
Call Sono Bello.
Get in there for your free consultation. Do this for you.
Schedule your free, no-obligation consultation. Our flexible payment options make it easy to get started today.
Millions are trading crypto, but finding the right platform, difficult, unless you use Kraken. It's simple. Buy, sell, or withdraw anytime. Kraken. Looks good on you.
This little light of mine, in the dark found a hopeful sign.
For those with depression not getting enough relief from their antidepressant, adding Caplyta can help you let in the light, providing greater relief from depression symptoms than an antidepressant alone. And unlike some medications, Caplyta is also proven to deliver significant symptom relief from both bipolar 1 and 2 depression.
Elderly dementia patients have increased risk of death or stroke. Caplyta is not approved for dementia-related psychosis. Call your doctor about new or sudden mood changes, behaviors, or suicidal thoughts right away. Antidepressants may increase these risks. Report fever, confusion, stiff muscles, which may be life-threatening, or uncontrolled muscle movements, which may be permanent. High cholesterol and weight gain may occur, as can high blood sugar, which may be fatal. Common side effects are sleepiness, dizziness, nausea, dry mouth, feeling tired, and diarrhea. These aren't all the side effects.
Ask your doctor about Caplyta.
Help see more of the light inside of me.
We've been building chainsaws for over 100 years. Now that century of cutting comes in a mower. New blade, same bloodline.
All right, this was really something. FBI Director Kash Patel and the Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche unveiling an incredible scandal this evening that gets to the core of our very anti-American, very dangerous NGO racket in this country. The DOJ indicting the far-left Southern Poverty Law Center on federal fraud charges, including wire fraud, bank fraud, and conspiracy to commit money laundering. So what did they do? Well, the SPLC is a nonprofit that claims that it fights hate, bigotry, white supremacy, and extremist groups. They are certainly a Marxist entity, and they're now accused of using their donor network funds, at least $3 million worth, to finance the very groups that they label as extreme in this country because they're trying to manufacture a big problem that they claim to be the solution to. It's an incredible scandal. Here is the FBI Director, Kash Patel.
They used the fraudulently raised money by lying to their donor network, thousands of Americans, to go ahead and actually pay the leadership of these supposed violent extremist groups. The groups, as the general laid out, include the Ku Klux Klan, the United Klans of America, Unite to Right, National Alliance, the National Socialist Movement, the Aryan Nation Motorcycle Club, and the National Socialist Party of America, and also the American Front.
So think about that for a second. The SPLC screams that we have this racist, fascist country. The Ku Klux Klan is everywhere. We have such a huge racism problem. They're funding the groups so that they can make these claims, so that they can claim that this is a racist, fascist country. They're paying for those groups so that that claim can be true, allegedly. The SPLC is also suspected of setting up shell companies to hide these illegal activities. What a story. Senator Eric Schmitt from Missouri joins us now. Got to get your reaction to this one.
It's pretty explosive, and the Southern Poverty Law Center has been a sham organization for a long time, going after conservative groups and mislabeling them and trying to generate a lot of hate against those groups. And now we find out that they were actually funding actual groups in order, I guess, to keep their racket going and the grift going. So I can't say I'm surprised. I think there's more of this out there, Rob. I actually think once they start getting into these NGO networks, there's some potential with Act Blue, laundering money. There's a lot out there, and I'm glad the FBI and Department of Justice has moved forward on this.
I think there's an entire apparatus of these kinds of organizations that are working against, I think, what's good and healthy for this country in every way. I think they have, I think the tentacles of other nations are into them. I think it's a very ugly system that is just being exposed here just a little bit with this story tonight. I want to jump to this. The wall's closing in on former Obama CIA Director John Brennan. According to CBS, witnesses subpoenaed to testify before a grand jury in D.C. into whether Brennan lied to Congress over his role in using the Steele dossier as a source to launch the Russia hoax. This guy was, it seems like he was kind of the ringleader of this. He vigorously pushed for the dossier to be used in the intel community assessment that depicted Donald Trump as a Putin stooge just before Trump took office in his first term. This was despite the fact that senior CIA experts underneath him on Russia told him that this was not right, that this was a bad idea to do so. He ignored them. A CIA review of Brennan found he had a preference for narrative consistency over analytical soundness. In 2016, he ran to Obama with the dossier, and the former President Obama ordered a rushed intelligence assessment to be completed before Trump was inaugurated. We have Joe DeGeneva, a former D.C. prosecutor, guy you see on this network a lot, is going to lead the grand conspiracy investigation. What can you add to this? Because this seems pretty big.
It is, and I think that Comer and Clapper, or I'm sorry, Comey, James Comey and Clapper ought to lawyer up here too, because they all knew they were down with this. They knew that President Trump, they viewed him as a threat. They laundered this Steele dossier into an intelligence report. They tried to sideline a presidency. And they kept that narrative going. And we found out from some of the documents Tulsi Gabbard released last week, this continued with that first sham impeachment. And then, of course, in 2020 with the Hunter Biden laptop, even the story goes on and on and on. And the reality is this, could be, and I believe is, a conspiracy that begins there. And then you got a lot of other actors that are part of that conspiracy as it traveled down the road. So it looks like there's some movement here. And I think there needs to be some accountability.
Yeah, for sure. We'll follow that one. I want to get to this before I let you go. Two CIA officers dead in a car crash in Mexico, the state of Chihuahua, returning from a meeting with Mexican officials after a counter-narcotics operation to dismantle a secret drug lab. The president of Mexico now demanding an investigation into this, as if she didn't know that this was happening in her country. Trump has promised that he would go after these very dangerous cartels that were so enriched under the Biden administration, of course, these very vile and dangerous cartels. You had the CIA intelligence helping Mexico to track down the guy El Mencho, a cartel kingpin here. This happened back in February. It seems like, we're making a pretty big move to try and neutralize these massive cartels that effectively kind of run Mexico and are just to our southern border.
Yeah, look, and you want to talk about what was happening at our southern border, not just the human trafficking and all of the people that were brought here illegally. Those cartels were running the show. They had lanes of influence that extended, by the way, into the United States. Yeah. The damage that these cartels have done to American citizens, you've had people in our communities all across this country who have been killed because of the fentanyl that was brought in, all the illegal drugs that were brought in. President Trump, going after these narco terrorists on the open seas. So, I don't know the specifics about this. I haven't been briefed, but the President of the United States isn't going to apologize for protecting the American people. And I think that the cartels had their way. It was very profitable for them for 4 years in trafficking drugs and people into this country, and those days are over.
Yeah, and the president, he's made a big deal about stopping, this kind of behavior that we've just allowed for such a long time, and it's been so ridiculous to see how many people are killed in this country from illicit drugs that we've just allowed to come into this country. Senator, we appreciate you coming on. Good to see you.
Anytime, Rob. Take care.
All right, coming up, Virginia Democrats looking to pull off a scam tonight, turning a purple state that Trump only lost by 5 points into a 10-House seat powerhouse for Democrats with just one red district for Republicans. The results are very tight. We're going to check on them as they continue to trickle in. Come up here after the break. Stay tuned.
At Allegiance, we do it differently. Flags 100% made in America, by Americans, with American materials.
We're proud to create jobs right here in South Carolina. It might not be the easiest way, but it's the right way.
We make American flags the way they should be made, where they should be made.
Join our pledge to keep the American flag truly American.
Visit showallegiance.com to get your high-quality American flag today. That's showallegiance.com.
IRS. 3 letters that strike fear into everyone, and for good reason. The IRS is the most powerful collection agency on earth, and being in debt to the IRS can have serious consequences. Oftentimes it begins with the IRS sending you a collection letter, but then escalates. And before you know it, you're having your paychecks garnished, your bank account seized, even your home or business could be at risk.
My problem was I hadn't paid my taxes in 8 years. I was trying to take on the IRS by myself. I have 5 children, I'm trying to take care of my kids, and it was a lot of stress.
I owed the IRS over $10,000.
They told me the possibilities of garnishing my wages to resolve this debt that I owed them.
I owed a lot of money to the IRS, almost $15,000. Well, there was nothing I could do about it. I was just overwhelmed at what to do.
These stories are all too common. But thankfully, there's Optima Tax Relief, America's #1 most trusted tax resolution firm. Optima's experts have helped thousands of people with stories just like these resolve their tax debt.
I owe $15,000. I only had to pay $3,500, and now my debt is clean. I don't owe anything. It was easy, like 1, 2, 3.
Since I've settled everything with the IRS, with Optima Tax help, I'm going to be able to succeed instead of just worry.
They sent the paperwork in for the debt to be cleared, the liens to be taken off. Now I'm a happy camper now. If you owe the IRS, don't go it alone. Give Optima Tax a call.
So don't wait. Today you have options. Tomorrow you might not. Optima's tax professionals are standing by, ready to help you now.
For a free consultation, call 800-375-1215. That's 800-375-1215.
Optima Tax Relief.
Stop. Check this out. Our most advanced performance frame, Talon, is out. It's a bestseller. We just got it back in stock, and I want to show you a little bit about it. These come with our signature lost and broken protection, and you can try them risk-free for 30 days. Check them out at ShadyRays.com.
Actual 5-star reviews of Bob's Treasure Mattress, performed by 5 stars.
If you're an early riser and have important places to be, do not buy this bed.
It's too comfortable. It puts me in the most deepest sleep. Daddy hits snooze and I'm late every day.
A fear may be reprimanded by my employer. And bed too perfect is not a good excuse.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Oh my God!
Bob's Discount Furniture.
Hey, Virginia. By voting yes, you have a chance to do something important. Not just for the Commonwealth, but for our entire country. You can push back against the Republicans trying to give themselves an unfair advantage in the midterms. And we're counting on you. Vote yes, Virginia.
Okay. So polls have been closed since the start of this program on this referendum. Results are trickling in from Virginia's Democrat redistricting scheme here. It's a plan to redraw what is a purple state. It was a close election in 2024. Trump lost by 5. They want to redraw it. Right now it's like 6-5, something like that. They want to turn it into 10 Democrat districts in the state, and 1 huge Republican district would be, as you can see on the right there, in the rural area out to the west in the state of Virginia. That's all one big district out there, very sparsely populated, and then you got 10 districts all in the east and central part of the state. Obama pushing this, as you just saw, Soros dumping millions into this. The president urged Virginians this morning to vote no to save your country. Again, a state he lost by just 5 points. It's about to have virtually no Republican representation in it, should this pass tonight. And the numbers are just coming in. We're about 30% at this point. Matt Schlapp, CPAC chairman, joins us now. Ben Ferguson, host of the Ben Ferguson Show. Matt, right now, you know, the numbers, they're moving around, but right now the no's are winning by a little bit, which would keep the map the way it currently is. Talk about this move here and the idea that Virginia would be 10-1 Democrat to Republican.
Yeah, first of all, everyone should take a breath. Republicans tend to lose the governorship in Virginia when we win the White House. It's one of these counter-cyclical states. But Spanberger, the governor, this Democratic governor, said she'd run as a moderate. Look what she's doing. She wants to take everyone's guns. She wants to raise income taxes to California levels. She wants 9 months of abortion that we pay for. And now she wants to deny about 48% of Virginians the ability to have their say in who goes to Congress. All these 4 Republican districts that she'd take away would basically go to the D.C. suburbs. So all the people who run the swamp, inhabit the swamp, and live in Virginia will just get even more votes in Congress. And so I'd say with these early returns, and I'm sitting in Virginia right now, I think we'll know fast because it's Virginia, but this is a very good sign. The people in Virginia are saying, you know what, I might have voted for a moderate Democrat. I didn't vote for this woke DEI crap, and I certainly didn't vote to have some kind of scheme to give Hakeem Jeffries the gavel.
Right, and Spanberger has been, I think, a huge disappointment for a lot of people in that state that were just, I mean, it's so sad to not have Youngkin anymore. You guys had it so good for so long, Matt. Ben, if we could pull the question up again, because the way that they worded it, it just shows you the intention of it all.
Yeah.
If we can pull up that full screen. Look at the last part of the line there. To restore fairness in the upcoming election. So going 10-1 in a purple state is fairness. Ben.
Yeah, it's like communism 101. Tell everybody it's fair when in reality it's not even close to fair, and take away everyone's right to have a say-so in their state. You look at Virginia and just go back to this last Trump-Harris, major day. It was a victory, many would believe a moral victory for the Republicans to get that close, because historically it's been about a 10-point spread, Democrat to Republican. But when does it become a swing state? When there are issues that inspire independents to break for conservatives. And I think what you might be witnessing tonight is exactly that Virginia, of course, leans more liberal, but when there's a certain breaking point, whether it's the governor now, what you're seeing, or just flat out being lied to about what this actually is they're voting on tonight, people reject it and they say no. Now, let's say hypothetically this goes 10-1. This is setting off a political bomb across the country, because then Republicans have to look at this and say, okay, how do we make it fair again? What do we do in another state to then try to make up for what was just stolen from us in Virginia? And then when does it stop, right? Does it turn into basically everything, every Democratic state is always Democrat, and everything in a Republican state is always a Republican state, and we just go to Washington with that? That is not what our founding fathers wanted. So I hope Virginia does the right thing tonight.
Yeah.
And then that means no House of Representatives. I mean, the reason to have a House of Representatives is because you can be in a blue state, but you have the ability to have red regions in that state. And I think this is critical. Remember, in Virginia, we voted for a commission because the Democrats told us they wanted to take the politics out of redistricting. That's why this is unique. They wanted this commission. Now they want to shuck the commission and gerrymander these districts and deny Republicans any vote in the House, and it's a disgrace.
Is this more egregious? I mean, a lot of people say Republicans, picked this fight when they did what they did with Texas. This is far more egregious than that, right? When you look at the numbers, Matt.
No, this is not at all. Yeah, Ben would agree, but like what you can do redistricting, I'm fine with states doing redistricting at the middle part of the decade, like it's being done in these states. If Democrat states want to do that. The disgusting thing in Virginia is they took it out of the legislature and they're giving it right back to the legislature just because they want power. All you have to know, it's about power and $65 million from George Soros. It's a pretty simple equation.
Obama and Soros together, you're getting screwed, folks.
Yeah, you certainly do. I got one more before I let you guys go. Sheila Sherfilis McCormick, a name we won't have to say much more. This is $5 million stolen in FEMA funds. She resigned today. Ben, I mean, this is about as bad as it gets. Just swiping a lot of cash is the allegation. I assume the DOJ comes next, but she's done in Congress.
I say this over and over again. I don't care if you have an R or a D next to your name. If you're stealing from the American people and you're using a position of power for your own enrichment and corruption and you get busted, you should go to jail. If it's gold bars in your jacket, you should go to jail. If you're a Republican that's a pastor that runs for Congress and you're stealing money, you should go to jail. And what she did clearly, I think, is breaking the law. I hope the next picture we see of her is not only a mugshot, but she's in a jail suit. And I hope she's there for a long time. It sends a clear message to every other scumbag in Congress. You do this, at least while Republicans are in charge, we're going to come find you and we're going to put you behind bars.
Yeah, let's do the stock stuff next. I forgot about Gold Bar Menendez too. That was great. Matt Schlapp, Ben Ferguson, good to see you. Thanks, guys.
Good to see you.
New bill to denaturalize, I should say, and deport all foreign national Marxists in our country. Congressman Chip Roy explains his Mamdani Act up next.
It's our America. We built it. Courage, freedom. Millions go to Newsmax when they need to know. Start today on the free Newsmax app. Newsmax is real news for real people.
The pain is gone. It's gone. I was wheeled in. I couldn't even move 5 feet without the wheelchair. I was in awful pain.
Are you able to get onto the bed?
I doubt it.
No?
We went through the whole intake interview, did the MRI, x-rays. I was awake through the surgery, came back to recovery. I was there for 10 minutes, and I got up and I walked.
It's our America. We built it. Courage, freedom. Millions go to Newsmax when they need to know. Start today on the free Newsmax app. Newsmax is real news for real people. The pain is gone. It's gone. I was wheeled in. I couldn't even move 5 feet without the wheelchair. I was in awful pain. I was in awful pain. We went through the whole intake interview, did the MRI, x-rays. I was there for 10 minutes, and I got up and I walked.
We went through the whole intake interview, did the MRI, x-rays. I was awake through the surgery, came back to recovery. I was there for 10 minutes, and I got up and I walked.
Venati succeeds where others fail.
My friends, I come to you today on behalf of the Jewish people in Ukraine whose lives have been completely destroyed. Family and loved ones brutally killed. The International Fellowship of Christians and Jews is inside of Ukraine, providing emergency food and supplies to tens of thousands of people.
I am shocked how many elderly people came here. They're afraid, and they realize now that there are more people than boxes.
For just $25, you can help rush an emergency food box to the elderly Jews in Ukraine. Many of them are hungry, frightened, and alone. Today, there's a special opportunity to double your gift's impact. Call now, and your gift's impact will be doubled.
The people of Ukraine are caught in the crosshairs of war. Many of these precious people are Holocaust survivors, elderly Jews who are sick and dying. They have no food, and we must reach them now before it's too late.
The world is in a war again. I am alone. I'm afraid of the bombs. I'm scared. I am old. There is no food.
Just $25 helps rush emergency food to elderly Jews in Ukraine who are in urgent need today. Please call, scan, or go online right now.
I will not starve. Thank you, good people.
We can be the hope to the Jewish people who are suffering in Ukraine. Your help is desperately needed now.
Thanks to generous fellowship partners. Call now and your gift's impact will be doubled.
Dale, you really need to get that colon cancer screening.
Yeah, it's been forever.
Dale, we can do it with just a blood test. Shield.
Shield is for people 45 plus at average risk, not high risk for colon cancer. Ask your doctor about FDA-approved Shield.
I'm Elmer Heinrich, at 92 years of age with my wife Shirley, who is 83. Now, both of us are still cutting a wide swath in life, all because of Immuno 150. Now, we are asking you to use Immuno 150 like we do. Give it a chance for at least 90 days so that you can see what 70 plant minerals and 80 additional nutrients can do for you.
It really is incredible.
Don't place your order until after you've watched the 3 videos on our website.
There at the penthouse was a home that Ken Griffin had bought for $238 million. This is the kind of real estate activity that's happening in the city. Homes that are largely empty for much of the year, but it all occurs while New Yorkers are hurting. I always said that I believed in the importance of taxing the rich. This is taxing the rich.
Do you still believe in democratic socialism? Do you still think it can be effective?
I believe in it even more than I did the day before.
Yeah, because the rich have never paid taxes before, you would think, if you talk to these people. The Ugandan mayor of New York, Zoran Mamdani, is more Marxist than ever. He glows as he talks about his plans to tax white neighborhoods punitively. But after failing to deliver to the brain-dead voters who put him in office, he has only managed to get a meager pied-à-terre tax on properties, second homes, worth north of $5 million. He has not done a very impressive job with the mandate to tax the rich, and he knows that. Congressman Chip Roy is one of few willing to push back on an alarming trend in this country, the fact that we have people like this running this country, that we are importing our demise. Roy introducing a new bill called the Mamdani Act, which would denaturalize and deport all foreign nationals in America who have advocated for or have ties to socialism, communism, or radical Islam. And Congressman Roy joins us now. Good to have you on. You know, the president talks about this a lot. We rescue people like Ilhan Omar from a third world hellhole, and she comes here, bashes our country incessantly, and then works to destroy it from within. You want to stop that?
Yeah, Rob, I absolutely do. I mean, look, this country's greatness stems from our shared values, our commitment to the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, who we are, and our Judeo-Christian principles. Yes, we are a nation that has invited people from around the world to come here, but that was to have people come here and be a part of the melting pot. That is actually melt and become a part of the American fabric. Unfortunately, we have too many people that are coming here trying to exploit our goodwill to then target us and undermine us. And, Ilhan Omar is an example of that. Mamdani is an example of that. But worse than that, we have 5 million people who have come into this country from majority Muslim countries since 9/11 who are trying to advance Islam in a very concerted effort, well-funded, that is articulated fully in the Muslim Brotherhood memo from 1991 to wage jihad on the West by taking over our country. And it's not just that, it's Marxism, it's socialism, it's Chinese communism. We've been inviting the people into our country to undermine it. Enough. We have the ability to remove people. By the way, this is not new. Under our current laws, we can reject people for admission. We can deport, denaturalize people that are affiliated with the with the Communist Party. And we should do that. And the Supreme Court upheld it. I just think we ought to expand it to a larger class of people so that they don't come here and undermine our American values.
It's no surprise that this was, this was always going to be the way that I think a free country, the vulnerability that it would have, that this would be what the demise would look like. When you have a freedom, the way we have it, is a huge vulnerability. It's very hard to protect something that is inherently as free as the United States, and it's very easy to exploit, as you just explained. And we're seeing examples of it everywhere, and we're importing as fast as we can so many different ideologies and cultures that do not agree with all the things you just described. Judeo-Christian, all of this democracy, all these things that we believe in that make this work. We're just importing it as fast as we can. Schumer demanding John Thune call a vote to extend temporary protected status for Haitians. Not going to play the soundbite because we don't have a lot of time, but the fact that we've brought in 350,000 people from a country that it's fine to feel sorry for, but Haiti has never been a prosperous nation. And where does it end? Do we have to adopt the entire nation of Haiti? There's 12 million more on the island. Where does it stop? And why is it that temporary protected status is now permanent in this country?
Yeah, it's a complete outrage. And by the way, your point about freedom, freedom is critically important when we're talking about American citizens. When you're inviting people from around the world, they need to adhere to our values. They need to join our culture and society and follow our laws. With respect to Haiti, that was a 2010 earthquake where we had TPS status that is now 16 years later being used to have all sorts of people come here. And last week, we had a woman in Florida beat to death with a hammer by a Haitian who got this woman, and he was hitting her car. She comes out of a convenience store. She's a mother, and she gets beat to death with a hammer by somebody who was on this TPS program. Yeah. Enough. The American people are sick and tired of it. And the fact that you had Republicans, I think 10 of them, join with Democrats to extend this program, the American people have had it. They're tired of their taxpayer dollars. They're tired of their benevolence and goodwill being abused.
It's a case as simple as public charge, too. We have rules that allow for us to deny people if we know they're going to come here and just be a drain on the system. And it used to not be racist to say that, but they've made it racist to say that, which means that what they're trying to do is destroy the country through mass migration and the importation of a whole bunch of people that we can't afford. They just want to they want to just screw up the system, and then they want to rebuild it. Whatever is left at the end, they just want to rebuild with it, and that's the whole part of the plan. It's so diabolical, and we're seeing it in real time all around us.
Well,
I got to leave it
Rob,
there.
I agree. Look, the Congress needs to back up the president, and he's doing the right thing. We just need to back him up and stop this flow.
I feel you there 100%. Congressman, good to have you
Rob.
on. Chip Roy, thank you so much. An Asian American communist, we were just talking about this, wants to lead the city of Los Angeles and destroy its police department.
PD is notoriously corrupt, racist, and sexist, but I'm not afraid of bullies.
Kevin Sorbo here, and I have an important message to share. The government needs more money, your money. If you owe the IRS back taxes, they can garnish your wages and levy your bank accounts. They can even seize your retirement or take your home. Don't let the IRS target you. Call the professionals at Tax Network USA. Their tax lawyers and enrolled agents are experts in powerful programs that may even help you eliminate your tax debt.
Call for a free consultation or visit tnusa.com.
Doctors say having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care and pharmacy at home. Let me bring in Dr. McCullough to explain more.
Most people know when they're getting sick, but waiting to see a doctor is often too late.
So the key is having medicines before you need them.
Yes, and it includes doctor-prescribed medicines to treat common and serious issues like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, antibiotics, antivirals for flu, pneumonia, strep, ear and sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
So it is like having an urgent care at home.
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications and hospitalizations.
How do you know what to take?
Just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Great advice. I understand ordering is fast online, and we've put the website and $45 off code on the screen. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
He's breathing. Okay. Go again.
Children account for 75% of choking deaths.
That's why I recommend everyone have a life vac in your home, car, or business.
The life vac is simple to use. Just place, push, and pull.
Its suction removes an obstruction out of the airway quickly, saving a life.
If you use your life vac for an emergency, we'll replace it for free. Order now.
Go to lifevac.net or call 877-543-3822.
Are you still cleaning your floors with a broom and dustpan?
Or down on your hands and knees with paper towels?
Or dragging out your big heavy vacuum?
Hello everyone, I'm April Lufrio with another deal from Incredible Inventions called the Zippy Sweeper. Is it a broom? Is it a vacuum? It's none of the above. It's an electric broom that sweeps up messes and spills quickly and easily. Whether you're cleaning up accidental spills in the kitchen, pet hair, dust, or crumbs from hard-to-reach places, Zippy has you covered. With its 360-degree swivel head and ultra-lightweight design, you'll get your cleaning done in half the time with zero hassle. It seamlessly transitions from hard surfaces like tile, vinyl, and hardwood to low-pile carpets. Say goodbye to tangled cords. The Zippy Sweeper is powered by a long-lasting rechargeable battery, giving you up to 60 minutes of uninterrupted cleaning power. This sweeper is equipped with a self-emptying dustbin, so you can dump the dirt with just one click, no messy bags, and no fuss. Perfect for homes with kids or pets. The Zippy Sweeper is as quiet as a whisper, so you can clean anytime without disturbing the peace. The Zippy Sweeper is available on Amazon for $109, but if you scan this QR code now, you can get it for the special on-sale price of just $59. That's $50 off instantly. Zippy would normally sell to major retailers like Walmart, Home Depot, and others, but today we're cutting out the major retailers so you can enjoy these huge savings at home. Go online or scan and save big with this QR code. And oh, Zippy is also offering a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you don't like it, send it back, and we'll even cover the cost of return shipping. Nobody else offers this kind of guarantee, so get your Zippy Sweeper today.
Welcome back. Time now for news from the left. Jake Tapper planning to troll the president at the White House Correspondents' Dinner coming up this weekend in Washington. Here he is with Stephen Colbert, two of the Democrat Party's most valuable propagandists, pretending that they are true and tried champions of free speech.
I like the pocket square.
Thank you. Oh, yeah. So this is a special freedom of the press and freedom of speech pocket square.
What's it saying? Show them over there.
There are a bunch of us that are going to be wearing these. These are from the Reporters Committee for the Free Press.
Oh, okay.
And because there might be some guests there that are unfamiliar.
This is the first time that the president is going to be attending, right?
Now that you say so, yes.
Yeah. Put those two together, it just screams free speech, right? Stephen Colbert commandeering a federally regulated network and turning it into just pure propaganda for one political party, drumming it into every home in this country. Free speech, right, Steve? Next up, Democrat socialist running for L.A. mayor has a 3-point plan for the LAPD.
The LAPD is notoriously corrupt, racist, and sexist. But I'm not afraid of bullies. I'm ready to take the LAPD head on. The first thing I'm going to do is fire Chief McDonnell. 2, I'll make sure the liability payouts come from the LAPD budget and not the city discretionary fund. 3, I'll direct the city attorney to prosecute and arrest cops that break the law. This city needs real safety, and that starts with accountability and real changes to the LAPD.
Yeah, let's destroy the police department and somehow make LA even worse than it already is. That's a solid plan. It is amazing to see that these people are still vying for power and that somebody with common sense hasn't just taken away, hasn't just gone away with the whole thing and stolen the show. Where is that person in California? And speaking of which, next up, Our Revolution is the name of the group. Bernie Sanders' anti-billionaire progressive group endorsing a billionaire to be California's next governor. So an anti-billionaire group is endorsing Tom Steyer, a billionaire. The platform founded to take on corporate power, elect progressives, and fight for a government that works for all of us, not the billionaire class. The group suggesting that Tom Steyer, the billionaire, has stepped forward with a platform that's clearly aligned with their priorities: single-payer health care, taxing extreme wealth, bold climate action, and getting money out of politics. Basically, Tom Steyer performed a humiliation ritual effective enough. He castrated himself so that he's now okay for this group to endorse. By the way, Steyer made his money running a $20 billion hedge fund, investing in coal companies and a private prison company that owned immigration detention centers. So he's like the ultimate villain. But now that he's on their team, they're fine with all of that. No word on when he'll be donating his entire portfolio to the federal government, though, and moving into a one-bedroom apartment in Pasadena. If you hate billionaires so much, Tom, stop being one. Give all your money away and live poor. Put your money where your mouth is. And finally, it looks like Islam is the hot new trend in Hollywood. Check out actress Anne Hathaway, so chic, as she just casually says, God willing, in Arabic.
And now I really value the chill.
Yeah.
I just feel like you can either fear aging or you can fear dying young. I just really want to hopefully live for and enjoy a life. I want to have a long, healthy life. Inshallah, I hope so.
She's so LA trendy. Inshallah, it's the hot thing right now. Islam. I'm a little Islam because that's sexy right now. These theater nerds. Kamala Chameleon up next.
A HomeServe story. Kim's home water line broke. She's panicking because she can't find a contractor. Pam's line broke too, but she's not worried because she has a plan from HomeServe. Kim settled for this guy. Pam had a qualified HomeServe contractor. Kim was shocked by her bill. Pam's plan paid for the cost of covered repairs. Choose HomeServe or chance it.
Plans from HomeServe start at just $4.99 a month. Call 1-833-731-7050 or visit homeserve.com.
Doctors recommend turmeric more than any other supplement for joint health. I trust Cunol Ultra High Absorption Turmeric, made with the #1 doctor recommended form of turmeric, clinically tested to support joint health and a healthy inflammation response. Cunol, the brand I trust.
When we started Allegiance, we were shocked to learn how many American flags are actually made overseas.
If there's one thing that deserves to be made here in America, it should start with the American flag.
At Allegiance, we do it differently. Flags 100% made in America by Americans with American materials.
Join our pledge to make the American flag truly American.
Visit showallegiance.com to get your high-quality American flag today. That's showallegiance.com.
Trust matters in crypto. Kraken has been building since 2011. Trade over 11,000 U.S. stocks and ETFs, and over 500 crypto assets in one app. Deposit and trade $100 and get $10 in Bitcoin. Kraken. Trade with confidence.
If you have trouble walking, one fall could cost you over $20,000 in medical bills. You cannot afford to fall. But you can afford Cadence adaptive shoes.
It felt really great because it definitely felt like I had more support.
It kept me balanced. They just do not allow you to slip.
It's like walking on air.
Aging, neuropathy, MS, or other conditions can make walking a challenge. But Cadence's revolutionary sole glides as your foot lifts and grips the ground when you step, letting you walk with confidence. You'll love wearing them as much as you'll love walking in them.
First time that I put a pair of shoes and I was so comfortable.
I'm actually shocked at how good they are.
I love these shoes.
Medical professionals and satisfied customers recommend Cadence adaptive shoes. So call now and order your pair risk-free for 30 days and get a free pair of Energy Boost socks during this limited TV offer. Call 800-461-1938.
Finally tonight, Kamala in Chicago for the Power Rising Summit. I don't know. Advice for black female voters to be transactional in voting. Take a listen.
I think it's okay for us to be a bit transactional too. And to say, I'm gonna get mine also. And so don't count on me to be a voter and be the backbone of the Democratic Party.
It's so funny. Finnerty, you know, every time this Jamaican Indian woman who married a rich white guy and only associates with rich white people pretends to be a black woman because it's politically important to her, it's always very entertaining to hear those moments from her.
Doug, what a man, huh?
The prosecutor, the prosecutor that put so many in jail. She's so urban now.
You know, Kamala, those black voters were transactional in 2024, and Donald Trump got more of the black vote than any president in modern American history, and that's a fact. Take it to the bank.
Take it to the bank, and
Rob?
take your show away from me.
Good. You know what? By the way, somebody said when you and I inadvertently wear similar outfits, like tonight, kind of similar tie color, we're both wearing white shirts, which I guess is kind of standard. It's tough to differentiate us, but we're different, Rob.
It's a little creepy.
We're different.
We're very different personality-wise.
The Rob Schmitt Show ends now. The Finnerty Show starts now. No, we're not.
Take it.
All right.